everyone. I have the unenviable task to stand between you and lunch, but also the privilege to welcome you to today's Science Education Academy lecture series. If we haven't met before, my name is Tini Matis and I'm the PVC for Education at UNSW, which I've discovered is one of the best jobs ever. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting and learning about vertically integrated projects on the unceded lands of the Bidjigal people, and I would like to pay my respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander colleagues that are joining us either here or online. Now, the Scientia Education Academy lecture series has been going on for a very long time, and that is because it is a especially precious forum for thought leadership, sharing expertise, and getting us to think about issues that maybe otherwise we wouldn't have time to dwell on all that much. The Academy, of course, is a group of approximately 40 fellows, and fellows here is code word for some of the most talented, passionate and inspiring educators and educational thought leaders that we have at UNSW. We're very, very lucky to have them as our colleagues and our thought leaders guiding us. The lectures, I have been told, have been going on since 2018 and never stopped, not even when unspeakable diseases hit our shores. For today's Scientia Education Academy lecture, I'm particularly excited to welcome two of our own UNSW colleagues. We have Lauren, who I think is now an honourable fellow, i.e. emeritus, and Sami, who is a current fellow of the Academy, who will be sharing with us about bridging education, innovation and societal impacts through vertically integrated projects. I'm particularly excited about this, and I hope you are as well, because as of a couple of weeks ago, societal impact challenge projects are a key feature of our new strategy, Progress for All. And just this morning, I was in a meeting where I was told, let's go scouting for talent and where these things are already happening. So this is not just a Scientia Education Academy lecture, but also talent scouting, if that's okay. Now, many of you, I think, have been to these before. It is my first, so the housekeeping notes are probably more for myself than anyone else. Just so that you know, the lectures are being recorded, and that is so that we can revisit, and people that can't make it today, that the wisdom is sort of captured for the future and not just for the present. The order of proceedings, I'm hearing, is also fairly standard. So we have about 40 minutes of presentations. The speakers are soon to be introduced by our director of the Science Education Academy and birthday girl, Patsy Polly. And then we will be ably guided through a Q&A panel by our DVC AQ, Merlin Crossley. So with that, I'll pass over to Patsy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tini, and thanks for the embarrassment of announcing a birthday. It's a good birthday, might I add. It's a good day. Any day's a good day when we have Scientia Education Academy work to be presented to our colleagues. So this is the first lecture of our series for 2025 and the first event for our calendar. We have a busy calendar for the Scientia Education Academy, so please make an appearance. I think a lot of people do enjoy what we present in terms of our work and how it's aligned with the strategy of the university. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce two of my wonderful colleagues. Firstly, Professor Sami Kara. So Sami is a Professor of Sustainable Manufacturing and Life Cycle Engineering at UNSW and the Director of Vertically Integrated Projects Program at UNSW. His research interest is in developing technology solutions with a life cycle view by using circular economy strategies to decarbonise and reduce the environmental impact of the manufacturing industry while helping them create value. Prof. Kara is well known for his efforts and creativity in providing students with authentic and engaging learning activities. His contributions to learning and teaching have been acknowledged and recognised, and I counted 13 different awards, fellowships, nominations, two of which are Vice Chancellor's Award. One is a national award, so well done Sammy, and that career has spanned from 2003 till last year, all those awards. So congratulations. Also, Prof. Kara is and was one of the appointed inaugural group of fellows in 2016. So we've been going for a while now, which is fantastic. He's also elected as a fellow of the International Academy of Production Engineering, Royal Society of New South Wales, International Academy of Engineering and Technology, and German National Academy of Science and Engineering. Well done, Sammy. All right, Lauren, Associate Professor Lauren Kark. Lauren Kark is an Emeritus Fellow of our Academy, UNSW's Science Education Academy, an Associate Professor and Deputy Head of School Academic of the Graduate School of Biomedical Engineering. She champions experiential learning with societal impact, securing over $650,000 in donations and mobility grants. Since 2015, her students have repaired over 2,000 medical devices in rural hospitals across Cambodia, Nepal, Tonga, and Uganda. That's amazing. Lauren received the Vice-Chancellor's Award for Teaching Excellence in 2016 and the Australian Awards for University Teaching Citation in 2017. In 2019, she founded the Assistive Technology Hub, where 300 plus students have co-created 50 plus assistive devices for people with disabilities. Her work featured nationally, has expanded to the Solomon Islands and Tonga. Well done, Lauren. So without further delay, I'd like to hand over to our wonderful colleagues.
Thank you, Vincent. I have it. Can you hear me at the back? It's good? Okay. Thank you. This is my third, actually, Science Education Academy lecture. The first one was, I think, in 2018. And Merlin always talks about it, and I used an analogy that the university should be like a fine furniture shop. Students should come as a log and leave as a fine furniture, rather than leave as a log with a certificate on them. Okay, I can't remember actually, but he remembers. So today I'd like to talk about vertically integrated project. Today, Dorota also reminded me that in 2018, I did actually mention this program in the one of the Science Education Academy meetings when we were trying to implement this at the time. So it's not new. I mean, we haven't created this. There is already a huge consortium behind it. It's actually developed by Professor Ed Coyle in Purdue in 2001. He still runs actually his own program. The entire whole stadium is converted to a live experimental area. And then he moved to Georgia Tech, again, set it up the same thing. In 2018, actually, we signed an MOU with them. And 2019, consortium actually turned into a non-for-profit organization. And of course, 2020 is a worldwide consortium now. This is sort of a snapshot. We are the first university in Australia. You know, we've been using it, but there's a large consortium. John is here. I will acknowledge them later, but he's on the way to Atlanta soon to join the consortium meeting, because every year people get together, practice sharing and what they are doing together. So what is it? In simplest form, we try to combine education, research, innovation, design, entrepreneurship, actually to have a positive impact in the society. So when people say societal impact could also be negative. I like to think that we graduate our students actually to do positive impact, and that's at least what we aim for. And the projects are team-based and long-term, large-scale and multidisciplinary. We sort of pay attention to these points at the sort of onset of every project before we set it up. And what we try to do is that to create an environment that students actually tackle these challenges outside the rigid constraint of their curriculum. So that's actually quite an important, and usually based on a faculty mentor's research area. And then the student gets actually course credit for their participation. So as far as I'm concerned, although this is a contagious issue, from the academic perspective, it's a research work. From the student perspective, it's a coursework. Although, yeah, I'll come back to that as a workload issue. It's a bit of a challenge. Of course, learning outcomes focused on this interdisciplinary and professional skill development. That's the main aim of it. And in 2018, we set up a working group that was actually part of, Maury just joined us, our Deputy Dean, that was part of the faculty's experiential learning, practice. How do we do this at a scale? And then we came across VIP program, our 2018 Education Festival. We invited Professor Ed Cole to give a keynote talk. I remember that. And then we decided that although the concept is generic, the university structure is totally different. We have different learning and teaching needs. So we realized that we need to somehow create our own version of VIP, which we have at the end. And what we did is we adopted a continuous improvement cycle. And we've been through, I think, 4th or 5th cycle by now. So in 2018, as I said before, we set up a working group. And in 2019, we started with a pilot program, 9 projects, original 9 projects from 9 schools. And then we developed 3 courses. It's still quite a unique structure because one course actually runs across 3 terms. And it's quite a challenge to do that because usually we have BE thesis, for instance, but the student needs to enroll 3 different courses every term. So there's an advantage and disadvantage coming from the system structure. Of course, we have to come up with assessment structures and revise them multiples of times. And 2020, it was actually quite successful. We have some really interesting projects. One of them, for instance, what's brewing? Colleagues in food science actually brewing beers and genes and, enjoying drinking and all of those. And then we decided that we roll out to the faculty. And we set up 20 projects to start in 2021, and then COVID came, unfortunately. And we went into a survival mode. We managed to survive, even on an online. I mean, students weren't happy because they signed up for in-person experience, hands-on experience. That allows us to actually revise our curriculum, look at the assessment structure, what worked. And then 2022 became, and then COVID restrictions started easing. And what we did is that we set up 25 new projects and then started piloting interfaculty projects. Medicine has been very keen. ID actually is part of the whole exercise. And then the built environment, of course, it's not called built environment now. At the time, it was built environment. So we introduced 2 or 3 projects, actually work with those faculties and to see how it'll work. And then, of course, 2023, it's lifted. The project numbers reached 30 or so, and then we started realizing the upper limits of what's manageable within the given structure. And I remember talking to Maury about this. We said in 2024, we don't set up any project, have a look at how do we consolidate this thing. Rather than having so many projects, maybe we have smaller project numbers, but larger cohorts actually joining in. And then 2025, that's where we are. And we are talking about now operationalization of scale-up strategies, not just within the faculty, but across faculties. I'll come back to that, for instance. EDFA, for instance, actually very much interested to join in. I talked to those colleagues, and instead of setting up as a separate entity, they are prepared to join as a separate faculty. And then we already have established collaboration, setting up new projects around existing collaboration. So how do we go about doing it? The project idea comes from an academic, if they want to do it. They submit an EOI form, and then we look at it, if it ticks all the boxes in relation to what the VIP should be all about. Once we are happy, we start recruiting around August for the next year's project cohort. And then after that, we establish a professional team structure. So what we follow is a typical matrix project management structure. We have projects, and then we pull in actually skill set from different background, whatever the project requires. It's not, you know, fixed. Some between Faculty of Engineering and Faculty of Business, Faculty of Medicine. Entirely depends on what are the skill requirements. And I also included EDFA here as well as one of the potential collaboration partners. So in relation to the team, there's always an academic lead and a host school. That's actually quite important. Someone needs to take the ownership. And then sub-team leaders from other disciplines, and then team members. Although it may sound very easy, we had a lot of actually discussions and arguments about, for instance, no school is happy to allow their students being supervised by someone else because of their learning outcomes, graduate attributes. So it's very important. Actually, one of my jobs is to do matchmaking. Based on the projects, go talk to heads of schools, find academics to join into the projects. Okay, so originally we started actually with a VIP research, right? So this is usually, you know, an academic has a, let's say, ARC grant, 3 years, and they are interested in extend to undergraduate research. We start establishing project, but soon we realized that there is actually more to it, that there's more need. And then the second one, rolling student projects into VIP program. And then we started getting a lot of interest from industry, right? And at the moment, for instance, we are trialing actually 2 projects. One of them is with Rode microphones. And the structure is totally different, of course. They have an idea, they've been thinking about it, but they don't have time to do it. Can we set up a student projects to do it? What we are interested, of course, we don't allow academics directly supervise students. There must be an academic in the middle to look after student learning and needs so that they don't think actually it's a free resource. And then finally, this is actually quite new, VIP entrepreneurship. We have 2 trial projects at the moment, both of them actually with business school. So when we develop projects, usually around TRL level 1 to 6. And then, of course, being an engineer, technology developer, we think that it's very easy. Tomorrow, I set up a company and start selling in the marketplace. But there's a massive gap in between from TRL 6 to TRL 9, and then doing the market analysis and then setting up a company and all of those things. Now, the business school actually is very much interested to explore that avenue. And we have actually 2 projects at the moment, both with the business school to explore how this entrepreneurship actually pillar will run. Okay, so as I said before, the main aim is long-term, large-scale, multidisciplinary teams, project led by a researcher, ideally embedded into their research program. 10 to 15 undergraduates works really well. We have cases actually, the team numbers already exceeded 100. Would be nice to start with small, and it also makes the life very easy if you have a couple of grad students, PhD students actually working with you. And that sort of reduces the workload in terms of supervision. And students actually draw from all disciplines. We call it vertically integrated project. In reality, it's vertically and horizontally integrated. Because we have students actually from second years to master, but we also have interdisciplinary actually integration as well. So in that sense, we start from second year. We allow master students with a permission from the whoever the program coordinator of the master's program. And then, of course, new students replace those who graduate on a rolling basis. This is something that Dorota asked me last year in the education festival. We didn't get a chance to explore it. We wanted to integrate societal impact into these projects. At the time, we didn't know, actually. We asked that question, but what is positive impact? What's negative impact? How do we frame it? How do we measure it? Fortunately, at the time, actually, I was doing the SDG 12 video for UNSW. And then we decided to adopt the SDG guidelines actually to structuring and measuring societal impact, right? You know both of these. Of course, this is my favorite. This doesn't say anything. At least this prioritizes that. We need to protect the planet first before we talk about people and economy, of course. So then what we did is that we integrated that into expression of interest. So every time an academic actually wants to set up a project, we have a well-structured EOI form. They go through answering all of these questions, and one of them is actually SDG alignment VIP projects. Which ones they are aligned and how do they intend to meet that? And I sit down and go through, have a look at it. If the majority of them to be TBC, and I send it back, make up your mind and come back when you know what you are doing. So, and then this is, for instance, what it looks like. It's a bit small, but this is the current sort of mapping of our projects at the moment and how actually they tick different SDG goals or align with different SDG goals. Now, this is actually quite an important, I'm sorry, it's because of teaching law. I was going to actually introduce another figure here. There's also the temporal dimension that you need to be aware of that, because we have some projects with immediate actually societal impact, what Lauren is going to talk about, right? At the end of the year, you have a solution, immediate impact. But we also have a research project with 3 years, but then the solution could be actually at a scale impact. I always use my own example. I have a project, for instance, EASE, developing exoskeletons actually for elderlies to help them walk. So, but in the next decades, 50% of Australian population will be in that category. So when we develop the technology, the impact will be at a scale. But we need to accommodate some of them blue sky. I mean, we don't know. So this needs to be contextualized in relation to the time dimension as well. You need to add a temporal dimension. So as a UNSW, we need to look at, of course, immediate impact, right? At an individual level, but also the societal level in the long run. And then, of course, each of these already being specified in United Nations SDG page. If you have a look at it, they also provide actually what are the criteria and how to measure it, and all of those things already being there. I don't need to actually go into that. So choosing your team, student apply for a team. Okay, it's not given. Academic lead actually interview the students. So it's a bit like job employment. Student actually put in their CVs and transcript, and they also write a expression of interest, few paragraph, and then they are actually picked based on their background, whether or not they are fit in the project. We provide a background, but we don't need to justify actually why they are not picked. Sometimes students get upset. Oh, I'm a high distinct student. Why I'm not involved? Because we don't need your skill. Right? As simple as that. I mean, because no. It's. I mean, if I'm doing a software project, I don't need actually someone from a background it's not relevant. Elective for engineering student. By the way, entire program is elective. However, other faculties actually students can join in as a gen ed and elective. This is a hurdle. I'll come back to that actually. And the students are say interview and then made an offer to join at the end. And the cost structure, of course, taking you to 100% assessment base. So the students receive an indicated grade for term 1 and term 2, and the final actually comes at term 3. Teaching method actually is based on academic consultation and progress reviews. There's no classes, nothing. Everyone actually works on their project. That's really the key issue here. And the regular meeting is a must. I meet my students. Maury is also actually part of our VIP team, for instance. We meet them 1 hour per week. And when I tell this, people are shocked because we manage actually 12 students in 1 hour. That's how actually I run it, and it's more than enough. But I'll get to that. And then, of course, the team longevity. Ideally, it should be a long-term project. And ideally, a second-year student actually, given that there's a time slot available, they should actually enroll into 3,600, 4,600, even masters and PhDs. Why that's so important? If they come back, then they don't need to worry about actually finding out what the project is all about. From day one, they actually, hit the road running, and they also mentor junior actually students coming in. It reduces the workload dramatically. I had a couple of students. Last year they did end for 4,600, and then this year they came back as a honors thesis students. Great. I mean, they are doing a fantastic job here. Assessment structure. Actually, it was a challenge. So we set up 3 courses, and we had to think really carefully. Our first trial, I think pedagogically, it would take all the boxes, right? But it was a disaster. Because academics, they are running their research projects. They are not interested in actually assessing students, and the students, they want to do the project without the fear of being assessed. We trialed, and it was very time consuming. I mean, it's textbook, assessment structure. Yeah? You can publish on it if you wanted to, but then I realized it just doesn't work. So the idea was to bring students into research. So we decided, how about if we emulate postgraduate reviews, APRs? We are already doing it, but instead of doing it for 3 years, we do it 3 terms at a mini scale. So as a result, what we did is that we developed an assessment structure, and it's purely based on milestones. We set the milestone beginning of each term. At the end of the term, that's what we assess. And then regular feedback on a weekly basis. And then what happens, in fact, at the end of the term, what they are actually presenting as a progress review is the culmination of what they have done on a weekly basis. It doesn't take, actually, per student, we spend 10 minutes to do the assessment on the spot. By the time the session finishes, everyone actually is marked. So this is how it looks like, current form. Right? So we have 3 terms, progress reviews, 20%, 60% at the end, because everything happens in term 3. And dimension, we have the progress. Progress against milestones, usually technical content, whatever the project requires. Self-reflection to set goals, because we allow them to decide what they can deliver at the end of the term. I don't know what they do. I'm sure they have a life outside of university, they work. So it's very important that they develop this project and time management. And it's quite funny, at the end of the first term, majority of them, they miss out milestones, but they know it. They say, look, I could have done time management better. And they come around. And then, of course, communication. We run professionally organized pitching workshops. We bring outside consultants halfway through the term 2, and they provide, if there's an industry, if you have an idea, how do you pitch in 5 minutes, or elevator pitch your ideas to, whoever the stakeholder. We also provide small mark-on contribution, because at the end, you may do a fantastic job, but if the overall team doesn't achieve what needs to be achieved, it's useless. So there are some students, they go beyond their projects. Actually, they help out other students, especially the senior student, mentoring. A second-year student wants to do, let's say, finite element analysis, but they haven't done the course. And a senior student actually teaches them. And then by the time, it's the end of the term, they are experts on finite element analysis. So this is great, of course. And then finally, technical assessment. At the end, the final output actually comes. Final pitch, I usually use the education festival. So when they are advertising their, promoting their work, the panel judges actually walk around, they assess them, how well they are pitching. And then, of course, same, how much they contributed, and the final output, we try to stay away from providing reports, written reports. It could be a prototype, it could be a software code with a manual, how to use it. And what students gain from. And by the way, we do a lot of actually feedback session. In addition to my UNSW, we have student clinics. And I think the most useful one actually what happens around the education festival. I walk around the desks. I ask them, if you have the authority, if you want to change one thing in VIP program, what would you change? Some of the most useful feedback actually comes during that time. And they master actually different range of skills. I mean, I have seen a computer science student wants to get their hands dirty in maker spaces, right? Build things. They've never used machine tools, milling machine, whatever. But at the end of the term, they are expert. They are still scared to operate it, but they are expert on it. And then, of course, extensive experience within their field or outside. And they really understand actually what it takes to innovate something and their societal impact, and the opportunities to learn actually different roles from other disciplines. And unique training. They don't get this kind of training because of our structured curriculums. And then finally, majority of these projects are linked to industry. And the industry people actually involved in these discussions, and especially the VIP industry projects. And that allows them to actually communicate with industry partner and build their confidence moving into the future. What would academics gain out of it? We provide additional support from Makerspace. I mean, they do a fantastic job. And then operational support from our faculty student opportunities team. And then, of course, support from research and student opportunities team to make robust industry connections. We work with them if they have an industry partner, we communicate with them, try to make it happen. Of course, there is a networking opportunity with the rest of the VIP network, reach out. There are people running similar projects around the world. It boosts their research and grant application, value-added grant application, tap into undergraduate and postgraduate skill set in a structured manner, new dimension to research capability. And finally, they utilize motivated students from diverse backgrounds. Normally, they couldn't do it. They couldn't reach to another faculty and other students to do it. Better organized and more effective undergraduate research and recruit students in HDRs, especially the large UNSW centers, ARCs and CRCs. They have education pillar, but it stopped at the higher degree research level. It never actually filters down to undergraduate. So one of my goals actually is to set up one VIP project, large VIP project, every center in UNSW, because they have the resources, but they are too busy. So in the faculty, we have about 100, right? If we could set one VIP project for each of them, and they could easily accommodate, 100 students easily. And that's one of the to-do list, of course. What would university gain? Student learning, faculty research, new partnership, multidisciplinary opportunities. I mean, this is, reason to stay in the campus, right? I mean, this is because it's a hands-on project. They love actually coming to university then. Deepens broader university community. One of the feedback I received during the education festival to have more education festivals. I mean it, so that they see what everyone else is doing within the VIP. So there's a cross sort of fertilization, which we need to explore, because there are synergies in between actually different VIP projects that we haven't explored yet. And then, of course, students understand actually what meaningful, positive societal impact means. For instance, in my exoskeleton project, I had 12 students. All of them have some sort of personal attachment to the project because they have a family member with the same problem. In fact, one of the students said, I will bring my father as a guinea pig in the education festival to try the exoskeleton, of course, if we can get away with the legal issues and all that. Okay, lessons learned. Before I hand over to Lauren, this is not a discrimination, but having an old school academic works really well. Combined, someone actually who does research and teaching. Education focused academic also works, however, if the project is related to education, right? And research only academics are also a problem. Right? So they are so much into delivering research outputs, and they seem to, when it comes to managing student learning, they are not there. So this seems to be worked really well. Project management, a structured project planning, execution, delegation of tasks. It's very important, and particularly if the project actually has an end target at the end of the term 3, because they have a target, something needs to be delivered, and it works really well. Bottom-up approach, it just doesn't work. I mean, we can introduce this program, but we can't make people collaborate. So that's why exploiting existing collaboration between academics is the great way to actually start this project. And team size 5 to 10 start really well, and then grow based on your capability. Weekly meeting and feedback sessions to make sure that they are on the right track in terms of delivering the project outcomes. VIP student events, education festivals. We have welcome sessions, drinks, and nibblies, and all of those things. Highly valued and sought after in terms of running this program. Challenges. Academic workload. I think this is a burning issue, and it is a school matter. I mean, we recommend, of course, how it should be done, but it doesn't go beyond that. So always the argument is around: is it a research? Is it a teaching? As far as I'm concerned, it's research, because they are helping me do my research, but we introduce actually course and course credit to get students to actually value out of it. So some schools treat this as a research, goes towards research workload, but some schools, academics say, look, I don't want to teach, so can I use VIP actually as a leverage to get out of teaching? So we haven't addressed that. I don't know what the solution is. Project management skills. I need to use my words really carefully here. Majority of our academics don't have, let's say, industry level project management skills. They try to run VIP projects as if they are ARC grants. Okay, and they try to spend 1 hour per student per week. And students don't like that. And of course, the workload goes through the roof. If you have 20 students, imagine spending 20 hours, right? So how do you tell a very high profile research academic that you don't know how to run projects? Very sensitive issue, but we run practice sharing workshops. Explaining actually people how we've been doing it, what works, what doesn't work, so that people have a cross-fertilization. Student time slots. This is also a big problem. Limited elective slots available for students, right? And what's there filled with, this is an oxymoron, I know that, it's a compulsory electives. And students have the perception that they need to develop certain skills, and they understandably claim that this is actually a requirement for or coming from their external institutions, such as the Institution of Engineers. And majority of the time, we have this huge, backwards and forward discussions that when you look at these institutions, they are interested in the graduate attributes. They are not interested in the learning outcomes. How you achieve is actually entirely up to you. But that requires, of course, a serious curriculum reshuffling to open up, slots for these type of cross-disciplinary projects. And finally, course structure. Now we have a growing interest. Projects needs to, some project leaders wants to employ students or get students on a rolling basis every term, but we don't have admin structure to run that. So majority of the time we allow once a year, beginning of T1, because it's a one course for 3 terms. We have a couple of projects we allow it because the numbers are 100 plus. And then we manage it internally. At the university level, we don't have mechanism to actually manage that. Who's graduating when, who is completed what, it becomes a serious challenge. That's all. I'll come back to, I presume there's going to be a quick Q&A session. We'll talk about the details. I'll hand over to Lauren. She can talk about the her experience.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sammy. Good afternoon, everyone, and it's my pleasure to be here. So my name is Lauren. I'm an academic in the Graduate School of Biomedical Engineering, and today what I'd like to talk to you is, I suppose it's a passion project of mine, which is the Assistive Technology Hub, abbreviated to the AT Hub. So today what I'll do is give you a brief history of the AT Hub and how we kind of found a home in VIP. Just a quick introduction to myself. I'm an education-focused academic, and the AT Hub probably fits into project-based service learning. So not a typical research model, but I think that shows the opportunity and flexibility of VIPs and what you can potentially make it work for you in whatever your, I suppose, interests and goals are. So AT Hub, we started in 2019. If we had foresight, starting a prototyping activity was not the best in 2019, but we've made it through and looking to grow. What I'd like to do before we jump in is just have a few definitions. As we go through this presentation, these are not stock photos. These are all photos that students have taken throughout their experience and their engagement with the Assistive Technology Hub. So quickly, just a brief definition of what is assistive technology. It's not really a cryptic name. It literally is technology that assists to promote independence and well-being. Common examples of assistive technology, a lot of us use glasses, for example, hearing aids, wheelchairs. But there's also things that perhaps we don't think about, like pill sorters, or, you know, those devices to put your socks on if you're not flexible enough. It's very broad, and it can range from the very low tech to the very high tech. But there's huge demand for assistive technology throughout the globe. So globally, more than 2.5 billion of us require assistive technology. But if we have a look at who gets the assistive technology we need, the global average is 10% of people who need assistive technology have access to it. Some countries say 90%. I would argue that's probably a little high. And in other countries on the other extreme, we're looking at 3% of people who need it have access to it. And this is often the barrier between participating in education, vocation, family, society, and well-being. So it can have a huge impact on not only the individual, but also society. And there's a lovely quote from a disability activist that says, "With the right technology, we will have a world where I can't becomes I can." But that technology you can only get if someone makes it. And that's where we come in. So the Assistive Technology Hub, basically our premise is we connect students with people with disability to co-create, and that process of co-creation is so key. Bespoke pieces of assistive technology that can promote participation in life. These are all end user driven, so we're not trying to push technology. We're definitely driven by a needs pull. A little bit about AT Hub. Patsy's already given an intro. We've had about 200 more students, more than 50 projects. Been very lucky in that we've had quite a bit of philanthropic interest, which has allowed us to really, I guess, generate that impact. Although having said that, the AT Hub started with a $5,000 grant. So hopefully that gives some people some hope if you're looking at doing something similar. And we've worked across 3 countries, Australia, Solomon Islands, and Tonga in the Assistive Technology Hub. So when we first started, we started in a course. It was a 10-week course. Quickly realized that 10 weeks or 9 weeks, as it is not long enough. And then we moved into a 2-term course, which is a 6-unit of credit course split over 2 terms. And still that wasn't long enough. But here are some of my favorite projects that came out of, on the left-hand side, the 1-term course, which actually turned into a 5-year project. And then on the right-hand side, a 2-term course. So the left is Matilda. Matilda was born with only 2 fingers on her left hand. She was a rower. Are there any rowers in the room? To qualify for rowing in the Paralympics, you need to be able to row sweep, which is 1 oar, as well as scull, which is 2. The structure of her hand meant she couldn't turn the oar. So our students built a device that turns the oar automatically based on positioning. And we worked with the orthotists up the hospital to develop a custom orthosis. Now, that started in 2019, and we didn't finish it until last year. So it started in the course, and then it moved into a student society. So you can see we were very lucky in that we had the students who were very engaged and could see it through. That's very sort of tenuous if we're going to rely on that. You can read that quite while I'm talking. That was a premature click. On the right-hand side, we have Chardy, who is actually one of our students here at UNSW. He had a car accident, left with a traumatic brain injury, which affected his hands. He was a concert violinist whose goal was to perform again. And I think in the 2023 Education Festival, he performed for the first time since his accident on an instrument that our students created. That's not the final version, but there's a lovely turned wooden instrument that our students created just for him. Now that for a 6-unit of credit project over 2 terms is a ridiculous workload. The other challenge with having one-off touch points is that, one, we have, I think, a moral responsibility to ensure that we maintain these pieces of equipment, but we also want to, where was I going with this thought? I think we want to continue our engagement, all right, to improve, to iterate. And these one-off touch points don't give us that. We were lucky in these projects. They turned out well because of the students involved. But I think structurally, there's things we can implement to ensure success and to remove some of those variables. And so that's where we thought, hang on, 1 term's not working, 2 terms isn't working, let's try 3. And I think 3 terms is working now in the VIP, but also it gives you that sustainability because students can engage year on year. And we also have a workforce that we can use to call on to repair any equipment as we go through. So what we did was the AT Hub operates under, we have thesis projects, we have student societies, but then we also wanted to enter into the VIP space. So we thought, well, we had desires to have an international arm of the AT Hub. They were, of course, quashed by the pandemic, but we thought, what a great opportunity. And so we launched the AT Hub International last year, really, maybe 2023, in the VIP framework. This is a collaboration with my wonderful colleagues at the Solomon Islands National University in Honiara, and they've been fantastic. So let me talk you through, I suppose, how we work and how we're trying to promote sustainability in these projects. So what we first need to do, our students will go to in-country. At the moment, it's Honiara, well, it's Solomon Islands, the city is Honiara. They have this experiential kind of learning experience where they go and talk to different people and they not only identify, but they also validate unmet needs. Okay, remember, we're really driven by a needs pull rather than a technology push. They do that in country. That's what the white box is. They then return and they hand over these unmet needs to the next year of the VIP project. Okay. While they're in Australia, the yellow is UNSW, probably not the right shade, apologies. They work on prototyping the solution. Okay, so they spend terms 1 and 2 really in the maker spaces here. The maker spaces really are key for a number of our projects and especially the AT Hub. In between terms 2 and 3, this group, which is not the same group that identified the need, but this group that developed the prototype, returns to Honiara and engages with stakeholders to gain feedback on their prototype. While they're there, they identify unmet needs for the next group. Okay, so we're seeing this cycle. Okay, return to Australia and develop their final prototype. This is what is the VIP for AT Hub. Okay, of course, final prototype is not final delivery, and we're talking about societal impact. We want to be able to manage our partnerships, and so we want to deliver something more than the final prototype. And so while this doesn't happen at the moment within this VIP, we are now working with the Institute of Health Engineering to take these prototypes from prototypes to devices. And so we look at finalizing the device, deploying, and then, of course, monitoring and evaluating. The big goal for that is to spin out as a social enterprise. but let's see what time brings us. All right, so let me take you through one round of that loop just to show you what we've been doing. Okay, so in 2023, we took a group of students who were involved in our student society, which is called the Rehab Eng Soc. It's a bit of a mouthful. And this really was go and find some unmet needs for future years to work on. And so we've got our students working in the biomedical engineering workshop at the National Referral Hospital. We had our students train the community-based rehab students on modifying toys for kids with disabilities, so taught them soldering, assembly, etc. And then just being able to visit teachers, etc., to identify the needs. Now, this lovely man here, Sirah, is an academic at the Solomon Islands National University. He said their two big problems in assistive technology are seating and communication. So we thought, brilliant, we'll take that on. So we brought home these two unmet needs that we then popped into the VIP project. Our students prototyped and then brought it back to the Solomon Islands the next year and engaged with a whole bunch of different stakeholders. Not all of them are here because obviously there's privacy concerns, but different types of stakeholders included the students at the university, staff at the hospital, teachers, parents, and where possible, kids with disability who are going to use these devices. Then iterated very much with, so the co-creation, and for, I don't mean for in a service, but it more means appropriate for use in the Solomon Islands. Okay. The other thing that we wanted to make sure was in terms of sustainability manufacture. Okay, we didn't want to be shipping things over. That's not appropriate. We also wanted some capacity building. So with the posture program, the posture project, it's a bit of a mouthful, that basically came down to a furniture making. And so what we did was this, Amelia with Matthias in the carpentry workshop of the Solomon Islands National University, working with them to see whether that little tiny chair can be made into a big chair that's appropriate for use. And go into the features of the chair another time if you're interested. But what was really nice is we went away for the night, came back the next morning, we were told the head of civil engineering had been in, super excited, and had put this project as the final year project for the carpentry students at Solomon Islands National University. So now we have this chair that can be manufactured each and every year, improved and iterated on for the local context, which is incredible. Wow. So very, very proud. I think that's Matthias' son, but very, very nice picture to have. Now, I know we're pressed for time, so I'm going to finish up very soon. This is our model. What I want to do is just bring you a quote. And I'm sorry to the engineers who I've probably stabbed in the heart with this quote. It says, technology alone is not enough. And what we try and tell the students is technology is just one piece of that jigsaw that's going to contribute to that positive societal impact. So those of you in the room, if you're not from engineering, if you're from any other faculty, I think I've got roles for every single faculty in the AT Hub. But what I'd like you to do is have a think about where you might like to be involved. And if you would, this is a call to action to reach out to me and see what we might be able to do to scale up the impact even further. There's opportunities in policy, there's opportunities in capacity in business, but I don't know your discipline as well as you do. So if you see an opportunity there, please reach out to me. I'm going to finish on one more slide, I promise, and then I'm done. And I was thinking, we talk about societal impact and making sure our students have this positive experience while they're here, have the impact while they're here. Students are here for 4 years. They're in the community for another 60. So we've got to make sure that we set them on the right path, the right trajectory. And so when we're thinking about the societal impact, which pathway are we sending them on? And I love this quote. It comes from the young man in the green who's currently doing a thesis with the AT Hub. He's continued on. And he said the story doesn't end here. It's just a prelude. All right. So perhaps societal impact, we may do something while we're at university, but we never know where our students might take it further. And I've got a lovely story of a student who did a similar project in 2015 and has spent his time since graduation in Afghanistan trying to work on healthcare there. So not just impact now, but hopefully impact forever and scalable impact as we graduate more and more students. I'm going to wrap up there. I'd like to say thank you very much. Please reach out to me. This is my passion project. And
yes, I think in the description of the talk, there was a sentence, I created this. That was actually misleading. It wasn't my quotation either. So there are a lot of people actually involved in this. First, I really like to acknowledge actually our faculty management team, our past dean, Steve Foster, and current dean, Julie Knapp. They've been behind this whole thing. Of course, Maury. And he's been the driving force since from day one. He also comes to every VIP meeting of mine to make sure that actually I'm doing the right thing, right? And then, of course, I just want to acknowledge we started with Alex Bannigan in 2018, and she handed over to Sandra Harrison and Nathan. We lost them to Macquarie, unfortunately. And Will Armour has been instrumental actually setting up the pedagogical aspect of things. And of course, John Kennedy and Ilandi. John is sitting at the back. Our student opportunities manager, and of course, Ilandi. She runs the entire shop on her own, right? I don't do anything. But I just want to acknowledge all of them. If you have any further questions, there are a lot of things we haven't talked about, please reach us on this email. Thank you.
So thank you, Sammy and Lauren. So people may need to go because now within the Teams world, every meeting starts at the dot of the hour. So some people will be logging on to their phones, but those who can stay do, and we can ask questions informally of Lauren and Sammy, and there's also food which has to be eaten because it won't last. I think that was absolutely inspiring. It is remarkable. You know, my whole philosophy of life is that you need two things. You need to have a purpose and you need to have a community. And these projects give people a purpose and the community forms around them. I think it is extraordinary. It is so funny, your quote though, Lauren, that, you know, that technology is not enough. So UNSW's motto used to be mano et mente, heart, hand and mind. And then they added core day so that you know, it does sort of capture. It's a bit corny that, you know, someone in a suit's quoting the university motto, but forgive us for that. I do think these things are remarkable, and UNSW has been hands-on, and UNSW also has a very deep engineering ethos, which when I first joined, I'm a scientist, experimental science, I found slightly annoying, actually, the way engineering dominated the whole university. But now I absolutely love it because I think it is, it's the best way to live your life, to identify a problem and then get together with other people to solve the problem. And this captures the biggest contributions universities can make. So I think it's fantastic. The question I want to ask, if people do want to ask and stay questions, I can stay, and I'd like to hear questions from the floor. There weren't any on my chat. And I should acknowledge the people who couldn't be here today, but online, and they can ask questions in the chat. But to me, the challenge with this is, I was thinking, could I do this? I wouldn't be confident of designing a good project. And you said it has to be a pull. And, you know, you guys are very aware of it. And how many of the projects actually don't work? And have you killed off a lot? You can both.
Yeah. I mean, I can answer. We had one student project. We trialed with SunSwift, and another project didn't work because of lack of academic leadership. Not because students actually weren't doing the job, because you need a very strong academic leadership, project management skills. That was one example. Of course, we have actually VIP projects finished because this is driven by research. And when they run out of their research funding after 3 years, we terminate the project because we don't provide any fund. I mean, we do provide a bit of peanut money, of course, but the entire resourcing actually comes from the academic themselves. It's a voluntary exercise from academic perspective. So of course, I mean, the current 20 odd projects are not the same. Actually, some of them, my projects are still running since then, but some of the projects are actually totally new, and some of them, you know, shut down because they finished the project. They delivered whatever they are supposed to deliver.
I think it's good. You know, it is the fish that John West rejects, and you have to have a mechanism. That if something's not working, to adapt it or Lauren, you have
Yeah, I mean, I can talk for my.
real things, and it must be, you know.
Yeah, it's stressful, right? You have to
Yeah.
deliver, and there's relationship management, and so there's a lot of the non-technical skills that are required. And it's taken, we started in 2019, and it's taken probably that much time for me to get an intuitive feel for what an appropriate project is. And so I'm very deliberate in my project selections that these are projects that can be completed in the year. It's much better for student satisfaction. And I think it's also much better for community engagement. But there is that heightened risk when you go to the community that you do have to produce what you promise, or at least manage that relationship in case you're not going to. But it takes, there's a bit of a learning curve to work out which projects are correct. And I think that's, you mentioned the power of collaboration, and maybe if you're new to it, it's hopping on to an existing project and learning the ropes before going alone.
Yeah, sometimes when the university fails, it's because we're too ambitious. Sometimes we are. But anyway, that's enough talking from me. Anyone online, anyone in the room? Oh, wait on, got something? No. No one's worked out how to use Teams.
I've got a question, if I may. So Sammy and Lauren, how many students, what's the conversion rate in terms of PhD or landing a job? I mean, do you have a higher success rate than the typical honours program? Have you looked at that sort of data, or?
For employability, we already have a very high employability rate. It's very difficult to choose which one of
It'd be hard to test.
You can't find PhDs, local PhD students, because there's so much demand from industry. I have a honors thesis student, for instance. I've been begging him to stay for a PhD, but he's already got a job in broad microphones. So it's very difficult to gauge in that sense, of course, what's working, what's not working. However, coming from ERP projects to honors thesis to PhD, we do have actually quite a few students actually staying over, especially from doing, let's say, Eng 3600, 4600, and love to come back for doing honors thesis. So we do have, we can pull out the numbers there. We do have a sort of rolling effect on that.
Silas has raised a digital hand. Is that allowed, Vernon?
Yeah. If we can, I can see your hand, I can see your face. We've got
Silas
And
here.
can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Booming through that room, I know it. So I'm just interested, Sammy and Lauren, thanks very much for a really interesting presentation. I've been keeping my eye on VIPs for a number of years now. And I wonder to what extent the focus can be turned inward. If we think about societal impact, the obvious sort of box to tick in a educational institution is education. But you mentioned that education focus might not be the best match, and yet, Lauren, you're education focused. I'm thinking, he did. So I'm wondering, can the focus be turned inward? If we have educational challenges, can we go and seek those out, sound those out, whether it be from academics or from students? And try and solve those challenges, where it might be something like a piece of educational technology or a process that could be implemented that would make a project.
So thank you. I think you sort of quoted my word without actually completing the entire sentence, right? I said, unless the project is right? If we set up a project around education challenges, then it works. The reason I made that reference is that originally when we piloted, we picked some education-focused academics, but they didn't have the research capability to supervise students, right? It's very much project specific. And definitely, at the moment we are setting up a new project within computer science and one of the UNSW entities around an existing education problem. So they see that as a challenge, and how do we set up a VIP project to address it? It still requires research, a software solution, whatever that is at the end. I'm not quite sure, of course, but the project needs to be framed so that the skill set actually match to the project, rather than, coming up with, that's why Lauren implicitly said, that's why it works in Lauren's case, because she filters what could be a successful, VIP project and then takes it on. Although Lauren said she's an focused academic, but she's got a very strong research interest as well. It's not that straightforward. We should all be education focused, by the way, because it's an education institution, right?
Yeah, so in fair comment. I think one does have to be highly selective, and one can't just say everything's going to work, and you are selective. And what you actually said was carefully phrased. So Lauren, do you want to comment there?
I don't really have anything additional to add. I think it really is project dependent. I think VIP may have started in the research world, but I think it demonstrates that, as long as the project suits and matches the student needs and goals, I don't think we need to worry about the classification so much. It's really about doing for good.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it is challenging. I was trying to think, what could I do? I think I do sort of exploratory discovery research, and it is harder for undergraduates to get involved because it takes so long. A lot of it isn't group work. A lot of it is individual, very disciplined. So I think, I would need help. I would like to see the list of all the projects and get inspiration from those sort of things. I think I think the art is finding the project.
There are some fascinating projects in that core. The Purple Heart, for instance, is also a very interesting Purple Heart.
What is that one?
That's actually with indigenous communities. We started, for instance, and the need came from them. Yeah. We sat down, we set up the project, and it's a fascinating, actually. And it requires a lot of time to go through individual projects, actually, what they are trying to achieve. And as I said before, it's really on a case-by-case need basis, and then you set up the skill requirement in that sense.
Okay, look, I'm going to wrap up so that people have got time to finish some food. I do want to thank this because you two have both made huge contributions. I remember when you got that award, Lauren, the National Teaching Award, so well deserved. It's great you're still doing it. I remember clearly, I was wearing the same suit, I think. Sammy, I remember all your talks and your contributions in various committees we've worked with together. So thanks. And thank you everyone for coming. I think this is actually the first time I've been to one of these events in the Teaching Commons. And the Teaching Commons, the idea was that people could see it and we could see the university, and that's fantastic. I just don't understand why there's a couple of seats at the back spare, but we'll fix that. There'll be compulsory attendance. Thank you very much. Thanks to